right? So earlier we have seen in the previous session how to insert values into the table of a database. Now in this session, let us see how to retrieve values from the table of a database. Okay, so now we need to import the packages java.sql and a scanner class also to be imported from util class, util package. So the name of the class here is dbread. So I saved this because the main method is part of this dbread. I'm saving it as dbread.java. Fine. So look at the first line. I'm creating a scanner class object. So I think I need not explain this. The system.in refers to the standard input device, that is a keyboard to receive input for this program. Then using the system.out.println, I'm prompting the user to enter his email ID. So we'll be searching whether a particular email ID, a user is present with that email ID or not, because email ID is a primary, sorry, it is a unique field. We can identify users uniquely by using the field email in the previous table that we have inserted. So what is the table that we have created? The name of the table is test, right? So it has the fields ID, fname, email, and DEPT, out of which email is unique key. So now if you want to retrieve a single record from the table uniquely, then which field can be used? Either ID field or email field. But the user will not know about the ID value. What is his ID value? He'll know his email ID, right? So if he enters his email ID, then based on that email ID, we can search in the table whether that there is a record with that email ID field value equivalent to the same that he entered. So we'll prompt the user to enter his email ID in our program, and then ask, and then we'll search for the particular record in the table and retrieve it if it is available. If it is not available, then we'll alert the user with that respective message. Okay, so that is what we are going to do in this program. So to read that value, to for to ask the user to enter his email ID, will display a message, enter your email, by using system.out.println. Then we'll read that email ID using next line method and store it in the variable email, a string variable email. Then now to retrieve data from the table, we need to establish a connection again to the database. So we'll put that code inside the try block. So I opened a try block here. So first thing that we need to do is register the driver com.mysql.cj.jdbc.driver. So we can register using the for name method of class, as it is a static method. So directly use class name dot followed by the method name, and within the parenthesis give the single string parameter, which is nothing but the driver class for MySQL database. Then the next step is to establish connection to the database. So you can do that as discussed earlier using get connection method of driver manager class. And again, this is also a static method. So once again, I'm repeating, you have to call it using the class name, that is driver manager, and dot followed by dot operator, and then the name of the method is get connection. So as we discussed earlier, it receives three parameters. First one is the database URL, unique URL to identify MySQL database. So it is same here as it is in the previous program. JDBC colon MySQL colon forward slashes localhost colon 3306, and the database name is registration. User account name is root, and there is no password for the user account. Okay, so now you have obtained the con object, so using which we can call the create statement, which will return statement object, right? But before that, I am creating the SQL query statement, that is select statement here. Now select star from the table name is test, where email is equal to, it must be matching with the email ID entered by the user here. So where is that email ID? In the variable email. So email is equal to open the single quote as per the earlier discussion, open the single quote and close the double quote and concatenate it with the value of the variable email, and again in return concatenate it with the single quote closed and close the double quote. So this is a select statement. So we'll store it in the form of a string in SQL variable. Then we need to obtain the statement object. So how to obtain it? By calling create statement method, which is part of connection interface. So call that create statement method using the connection object con. This will return the statement object. So now uh, the method that we are going to use for retrieving a record from the table is different. Earlier, for inserting value into the table, we have used execute update method, so which will update your database. That means it may insert the new record into the table, or it may exist a modifying record in the table. If that is used, if the statement is an update command, then you will be modifying it, right? So in that cases we have to use execute update method, but this is a query statement. That means you are going to retrieve record from the table. So for that we need to use a method called execute query method. So this is also part of the statement interface. So because we have already obtained the statement object st here, so call this execute update method using st.execute query and pass the query that you want to run on the MySQL server. So where is our SQL statement? In SQL variable. So pass that SQL variable. And what is this method going to return after successful execution? Means it is going to return an object of type a class called result set class, which is part of our java.sql package. So we need to have a reference variable for this class on the left hand side of the assignment operator, so that the object that is returned by this execute query method will be stored in that reference variable rs. So now we obtained the result set object rs. So what is this result set going to contain? Means it is going to contain all the records that have been retrieved from the table. It might be one record or it may be more than one record, and if there is no match found, then there will be no records. Okay, so how will you know whether there is a record available, at least one record available or not? uh, we have a method called next method, which is defined in this result set class. So to call that next method, we have the object rs already created. So if you call this next method rs.next method, then this next method is going to retrieve. Roll number 560, please mute your audio. I request all of you to mute your audio if anyone has not muted. Right. So this next method is going to return what? It is going to return either true or false. So what is when it will return true means if there are records available in that result set object, then it will return true. If there are no records available, then it will return false. So even though sometimes you have records in result set, it will return false. When means if you have already traversed through all the records that are available in result set object, then it will return false. But when you call it for the first time when you call it, it means, what does it mean? You have not gone through, or you have not passed through all the records that have been retrieved from the table, right? So if there are say 10 records retrieved from the table, then first time you call this rs.next method, this will return true because there are 10 records. So you can retrieve the first record during the first call. Then next time you call again, it will return true only because there are still 9 more records in the result set. So in that way, how many times you can call this next method? You can call 10 times. So that means the next method will return true as many times as there are records retrieved and stored in the result set object. But once you call more than that many times, then the next time onwards it will be returning false. So let us assume that it is going to return one record, because there will be exactly one record only matching with that email ID in the table. So we know that as per our earlier discussion, right? So I'm calling rs.next and putting it in an if statement. If there are multiple records, then we can use it in a while loop, because the while loop will repeat as many times as the rs.next method returns true. But we know exactly that there will be only one record, so there is no need of using while loop here. Simply use a if statement. So in the if statement, what I am doing is, if rs.next, then if it is returning true for the first time, then this statement, your details will be uh, displayed. And after that, what I am doing, I am retrieving uh, individual field values of that record by using some predefined methods which are part of this result set object, that is result set class. So you have methods called getString method, and you have also other method called getInt method, which will allow you to retrieve an integer value from the table, from the database table. But now, because all our fields that we are retrieving are all varchar type, so varchar types in Java program are equivalent to strings. So we have a method called getString method. So you can call that getString method by passing as parameter the field name of the value that you want to retrieve. If you want to retrieve first name, f name of the user, then pass as parameter f name in double quotes. Then this method getString will return what? The value that is there in the record under the field f name. If you call it with parameter email, then it will search whether if there is a field with name email, then from that record, what is the value under that field, that will be returned. Similarly, when you use DEPT, it will return the value that is under that field name inside your table record, right? So we have only one record, right? So that's the reason why we are calling this only one time. Okay, fine. So this is going to, I didn't put this in. So if you enter your email ID, then it will return the the remaining three fields also, two fields also. Okay. So let us run this program, compile and run this program. So Java C dbread.java. So it is asking me to enter my email ID. If I enter a valid existing email ID, that means in the already existing table records, what are the email IDs available? Tarakeshwar at gmail.com, Rajshekhar at gmail.com, Tarakeshwar at vjit.ac.in, tarakeshwar.rao.m at gmail.com, mail to tarakesh at gmail.com, rishit at gmail.com. So if I give any of these 6 email IDs, then it will return me the values. Otherwise, what is it going to return? As per our program, it will generate an exception, and that exception will be displayed here. Okay. So it is displaying, name is Rishit, email ID is tarakeshwar at vjt.acn, and department is EC. So let us check whether the details are correct in the database. So Rishit, the name is Rishit, email ID is tarakeshwar at vjt.ac.in, and department is CSC. Right. Next, I'll give, so this time it is displaying the name Tarakeshwar, mail ID is mail to tarakesh at gmail.com, and department is CSC. Right. Then again, I'll give a different email ID which is not existing, for example, say, or, or first let us check all the 6 email IDs that we have in the database. We must get the output for all the 6 email IDs. Yes, we are getting for Rishit also. So this one also I'm getting. So finally we got all values for all the 5 values, I think, right? What is the other one left? Tarakeshwar@gmail.com. Right? So for all the 6 different email IDs, the record 6 different records were retrieved. So now let us see. Let us give any other email ID which is not there in this database table. So it is not displaying any message here. Why? Because we are not handling that part in the program. So what is that we need to do? If rs.next, if it returns true, then we are executing these statements. We didn't write an else part for this one, right? So if you write an else part here, then it will display. Yeah, this is the alert message I want to serve to the user. So let me compile it again. Okay, so you're getting that message. Sorry, no records found with your email ID. Okay, so this is how you read values. So now, if you want to read that ID value also, we are not reading the ID values. We are reading only fname, email, and DEPT, right? So if you want to read that ID value also, you can write in one more system.out.println here. So what is the field name in our table? The field name is small letter ID, right? So we need to give this ID as parameter for this getInt method, because the data type in the table for ID field is integer, which is same as integer in Java programming also. So you have a method called getInt method. So use that getInt method for that one. For varchar, the method is getString. For integer, it is getInt. So let us compile it again and run it. So this time, so it is displaying ID value also. For name is Rishit, email ID is tarkeshwar at vjit.ac.in, and department is CSE. So let us check it whether it is true or not. So this is the field. ID is 4 and name is Rishit, and email ID is tarkeshwar at vjit.ac.in, department is CSE, right? So this is how you can retrieve values from the table. Okay, fine.